Good evening to all. So I'll be taking Swami Vivekananda's Inspired Talks. So Inspired Talks is a series of closed talks given by Swami Vivekananda to his American disciples. So he gave this talk in Thousand Island Park, which was recorded by his disciple Sarah Ellen Waldo, so which we'll discuss now. So in the last few classes, we have discussed the following topics. That is, the need for transcending both good and evil. So in life we find there are certain things which are good and there are certain things which are evil, and we have seen the need to transcend good and evil. And in the next class we saw that we discussed about the position of a giver. So we must always be in a position of a giver in life. And today we'll be discussing about sincerity and devotion in the path of spiritual life. So we'll begin the class with a mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So in today's class, as I mentioned, we will be discussing the need for sincerity and bravery in spiritual life. So I will read the passage which Swami Vivekananda has delivered. So I will read the passage. Quote, "Be brave and be sincere. Then follow any path with devotion, and you must reach the whole. Once lay hold of one link of the chain, and the whole chain must come by degrees. Water the roots of the tree, and the whole tree is watered. Getting the Lord, we get all." So this is the paragraph we are going to discuss in this class. So for the sake of clarity, I will repeat the entire passage again. So Swami Vivekananda says, very simple, he says, be brave and be sincere. Then follow any path with devotion, and you must reach the whole. Once lay hold of one link of the chain, and the whole chain must come by degrees. He says, water the roots of the tree, and the whole tree is watered. Getting the Lord, we get all. That is everything. So this particular paragraph can be divided into two halves. In the first half, he says, be sincere and be brave, then follow the spiritual path, and then you will reach the whole. The whole means the Brahman, the Supreme Brahman. So the goal of the spiritual life is to attain either Saguna Brahman or Nirguna Brahman. So Swami Vivekananda here he gives the prerequisites for a spiritual life. So if you ought to follow the spiritual path, you have to follow certain prerequisites, or you must possess certain prerequisites. So the prerequisites which Swami Vivekananda gives here are courage and sincerity. So to pursue a path, to pursue a spiritual path, a man needs courage. That is the first point. The second point is that Swami Vivekananda says sincerity. So regarding courage, Swami Vivekananda mentions it is not the sort of the physical courage. It is not the sort of the courage that comes from the muscles. So it is a courage that comes from the spiritual idea, or the spiritual idea that one is not this body, one is the Atman. So that gives you much more courage than this physical courage. So regarding this attribute of courage, Swami Vivekananda says, there are two sorts of courage. There are two sorts of courage. One is the courage of facing the canon, and the other is the courage of spiritual conviction. So he gives an example, Swami Vivekananda gives an example here. An emperor who invaded India was told by his teacher to go and see some of the sages there. After a long search for one, he found a very old man sitting on a block of stone. The emperor talked with him a little and became very impressed by his wisdom. He asked the sage to go to his country with him. No, said the sage. I am quite satisfied with my forest here. The emperor said, I will give you money, position, wealth. I am the emperor of the world. No, replied the man, I don't care for these things. The emperor replied, if you don't go, I will kill you. The man smiled serenely and said, that is the most foolish thing you have ever said, Emperor. You cannot kill me. Me, the sun cannot dry. Fire cannot burn. Sword cannot kill. For I am the birthless, the deathless, the ever-living, omnipotent, omnipresent Spirit. This is spiritual boldness. So this is the story which Swami Vivekananda gives here. So he says there are two kinds of courage. One is the physical courage. Another is the courage that comes out of the conviction that I am this Atman, I am the Spirit and not this body. So Swami Vivekananda here, he tells the story of Alexander the Great meeting a sage in India. So Alexander the Great, we have learnt in history that he conquered Asia Minor, he conquered Persia and then he came to India. So during his stay in India for a short period, he met one of the sages in India. So during his conversation with a particular sage, he was very much impressed by the knowledge which the sage possessed. So being impressed with the sage, Alexander requested him, you please come to my country. And the sage said, no, I am perfectly satisfied with what I have here. But Alexander said to him, oh, you must come with me. He insisted. And he threatened that if you don't come with me, I will kill you. But the sage laughed. He said, this is the most foolish thing that you have told so far. I am the Spirit. And how can you kill that Spirit? It is impossible. So what you have uttered is a foolish thing. So this is the kind of boldness which Swami Vivekananda recommends for every one of us. So we must keep reminding ourselves again and again that we are the Spirit. So that is the spiritual conviction, though we are absolutely not aware of it at the right moment because of ignorance, though we are absolutely sometimes immersed in these bodily engagements, but still the idea that we are the Spirit must prevail over everything. So that is the kind of conviction you need, or that is a kind of prerequisite you require before pursuing a spiritual path. So once for all, decide clearly that you are this Spirit. So Swamiji here, he gives that in this story, the sage, he says, me, the sun cannot dry, fire cannot burn, sword cannot kill, for I am the birthless, the deathless, the ever omnipotent, omnipresent Spirit. So even we find this in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein Krishna says that this Atman cannot be burnt or cannot be dried, it cannot be killed by a sword, and it is birthless and deathless. We find these particular shlokas in chapter number 2 in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein there is a discussion about this Atman being the deathless, birthless entity. So this firm conviction that I am this Atman and I am incapable of being killed. So that is a kind of boldness that we must have in life before taking up the spiritual path. Swami Vivekananda says, be sincere. So once we take up a particular spiritual path, we must be sincere in our approach. So sincerity is but being meaningful and true to oneself, and being true to one's own actions, and orienting oneself towards a spiritual path slowly and gradually. So all of a sudden, sometimes we don't get that spiritual conviction. It needs time. Sometimes we need some experiences in life. But once we gain certain understanding about the life, once we attain certain conviction about the spiritual ideal, we develop a sincerity towards the ideal. Though it may be slow in the beginning, but surely you gain a foothold in spirituality by being sincere. So by being sincere, again it gives you a safety. It gives you a safety from all ills of life, from bad karma and so on. So sincerity is again being regular in our practices. So once we take up a certain spiritual practice, we must be regular in it. Or gradually we can, slowly and certainly we can be regular and we can be certain, and slowly this sincerity develops, and it gradually it becomes a conviction, firm conviction. So these two are very much essential. That is the courage which Swami Vivekananda has mentioned, and again about sincerity. And he says that if you have these two things, you will reach the whole. That is, we will reach the path which we have decided, that we will reach the goal which we have decided. So regarding this prerequisites, there is another important prerequisite which we have to practice in our daily lives, is Shraddha. Shraddha means combination of faith in oneself, faith in one's own ability, and a combination of faith in God and of faith in spiritual path, and again faith in the words of the Guru. So in pursuing a spiritual path, there arises doubts. We have doubts about the existence of God, about how to pursue a path, and there are hundreds of questions which comes up in spiritual life. But if we have Shraddha, or the faith as discussed here, we will be able to overcome the difficulties that come in the path. For example, if you have faith in your own self, you will be able to overcome plenty of problems in life. Even Swami Vivekananda has emphasized this faith in oneself many a time in his complete works. We can find Swami Vivekananda repeatedly using the word, repeatedly emphasizing faith in one's own self. Be confident about yourself. Be confident about your own abilities. Have faith in your abilities. And then if you have this faith, a tremendous faith in yourself, you will be able to reach the spiritual goal. The second thing, it is about the faith in the words of the Guru. So in Hinduism, the Guru finds we find the place of the Guru in an important place. That is, Guru stands above everything. So the words of the Guru, or the guidance which the Guru has given to us, is very important. So regarding spiritual practice, the guidance given by the Guru, or the words of the Guru, or the spirituality which is transmitted from the Guru to the disciple through the mantra, is very important. So having faith in that, having faith in the words of the Guru, and having faith in the mantra which is given by the Guru, and having faith in the guidance which is given by the Guru. So this is very important. So if we have this faith in these three things, we are surely to attain the spiritual goal. And again, faith in God. So we must have faith or Shraddha in God Himself. So we must not be wavering in our convictions. We must not have doubts about it. We must be certain about the existence of God, and we must be certain about the goal being in spiritual life, for example, the attaining the God, attaining the Supreme Lord, and so on. So this faith in God is very important. We may have in our lives the doubts which crop up sometimes about the existence of God, but by remembering the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, by remembering the lives of Swami Vivekananda, and by finding in their lives about how they overcome these doubts and how they gave us the message certainly that God exists. So that has to be taken. Suppose if you do not have that conviction in God, you turn the pages in the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, and Swami Vivekananda, you find the solution therein. Take that and follow that instructions which are given by them, and then surely you will gradually find yourself having faith in God. And finally, faith in the spiritual path. So be sure once you take up a spiritual path, have a firm conviction that this path is certainly going to lead me towards that goal. So have no doubt about that path which you have taken up. So this is another prerequisite which is required for spiritual life, that is Shraddha. So again, I repeat for the sake of clarity. So Shraddha is having faith in oneself, having tremendous faith in oneself, faith in your spiritual abilities, faith in your potential to overcome any problems, any troubles in life. So this Shraddha can be divided into faith in oneself, that is the individual self. Second thing, faith in the words of the Guru. Have firm faith, believe in the guidance of the Guru, and believe in the mantra which is given by the Guru. Surely and certainly you will reach the goal. And having faith in God Himself, both the existence of God, without having doubts, and for certainty knowing that God exists. So that is faith in God. And again, faith in the spiritual path. So each one of us have taken up a certain spiritual path, which may be a combination of the 4 yogas. So having firm faith in the path will lead us towards the goal. So these are the prerequisites which are required in the spiritual path. So Swami Vivekananda says, again we come to the next section in that particular paragraph. Swami Vivekananda says, once lay hold of one link of the chain and the whole chain must come by degrees. So in spiritual life, if you have tasted a little bit of spirituality or spiritual success, be sure that you will be able to uncover the complete thing that is contained in it. So for example, if you are reading a single page of a novel or a book and you have found it excellent, so you know for surely that the entire book is going to be very good. So once you read the entire book, see the amount of happiness that is generated out of it. Similarly, in spiritual life, if you have read or if you have tasted a bit of the success in spiritual life, there you can be sure that the entire thing is going to be joyful, the entire thing is going to be, it is going to give you an unlimited bliss and happiness. So the greatest thing about spiritual pursuit is that the happiness that we are seeking is eternal. Whereas the happiness that we derive out of the material objects are not eternal. For example, I am tasting an object, for example, a chocolate. So the happiness lasts for only a few minutes, whereas the spiritual happiness is for eternity. It is an everlasting bliss. So that is the kind of happiness which we are going to experience in spiritual life. So that is the thing. Once you lay hold of one chain of the link, if you grasp a little bit of that spiritual chain which Swamiji says, the whole thing must gradually come. The whole chain. You will be uncovering the whole thing in the process. So once you stepped into that spiritual life, you will be slowly uncovering all the aspects of it. So you will be discovering all the aspects of that spiritual life and you will attain the goal. So regarding this particular statement given by Swamiji, it pertains to the practice in Raja Yoga. So in Raja Yoga, we find a series of steps to spiritual goal. For example, in Raja Yoga, there are 8 steps, which is the Ashtanga Yoga, which is prescribed in the yoga philosophy, and it starts with Yama, Niyama, Asana, then Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. So these are all gradual process. It is all step-by-step process. So, suppose if you are to begin a spiritual life altogether, or if you are new to spiritual life, and the Guru will ask you to practice Yama and Niyama. Because these are the basic foundational steps in spiritual life. So Yama, Niyama is nothing but practicing non-violence, practicing truthfulness, practicing non-stealing, practicing brahmacharya, practicing non-receiving of gifts, then practicing cleanliness, practicing devotion to God, practicing reading of scriptures. So, the basic steps, once you take up these basic steps, you will slowly uncover the steps gradually in the process. So, just by discovering one link in the chain, just by holding one particular link in the chain, you will be able to get the full chain in the process. So, this is what Swami Vivekananda is referring here. And again he says, water the roots of the tree and the whole tree is watered. So water the roots of the tree and the whole tree is watered. It is very simple. So the approach must be, here he says, it must be direct and towards the root. So in spiritual life, it means that our thoughts and actions must be centered on God or must be centered on God realization. So we must have God in the forefront and base all our actions around it. So by watering the roots of the tree, so by having devotion to God and by having our spiritual practices centered around God, the whole tree is watered. That means we may be able to live in the world peacefully and with a morally right consciousness and with full of good karma and by having a conviction of ourselves in the spirit. So that is the benefit we get out of it. So by practicing this method, we gain peace in life. So by centering our actions and thoughts on God, the first benefit we get is that we obtain peace. Suppose if we don't base our lives upon God, we find our mind wavering from one thing to the other. Suppose if we don't base our lives or if we don't center our lives upon God, we find that life to be meaningless and our minds constantly shifting from one thing to the other. Today our thoughts and actions will be centered on an object or a thing. Tomorrow it will be upon the other thing or an object. For example, our relatives and our closed ones. So, all these things are only temporal, but if we base our existence on God, the benefit which we reap out of it is permanent. So, the first thing that we obtain basing our existence upon God is that we attain peace of mind. And the second thing is that gradually we gain that understanding that we are this spirit, that I am not this body and I am this spirit. So that is the understanding we get. And finally, Swami Vivekananda says the whole tree is water. So our whole life is fulfilled and our interactions with the world will be refined, will be purified, and all our thought processes will be coherent. Suppose if we don't have this particular goal in life, the spiritual goal, our thought processes will be incoherent. Even our moral conceptions regarding life, even that will be incoherent. We may not have a uniform morality throughout the life. Some situations we may take up a particular yardstick of morality and say this is right. And we may use a different yardstick in a different situation. We might not have a uniform moral yardstick in our life. And we may not have uniform, coherent thought processes in life. So by centering our lives on God, our lives become meaningful, our mental thought process and actions will become coherent. We may have a firm moral practices in place to guide our life. And finally, we will have the supreme peace, so which is delivered for sure. So that is assurance which is given by Sri Ramakrishna. That is assurance which is given by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is assurance given repeatedly again and again that the supreme peace will be delivered. And this is not a very difficult process. Some of you might think that spiritual process is very difficult. No, it is absolutely not. The spiritual process is very simple. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that this process is susukam. Susukam means it is very simple. Kartum avyayam. So once you practice the spiritual thing, avyaya, the result is avyaya. Avyaya means it is permanent, something permanent, imperishable. So that is the result we get. And again, we find in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Sri Krishna says that Svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatopayat. Even if you practice a little bit of dharma in your daily life, it will bring you a great security from all the bad karma. It will give you a greatest assurance. It will give you the greatest assurance in life. So practice a bit of dharma, you will find the confidence building in yourselves. So that is the easiness of the path. So practicing spiritual life is very simple and it can be practiced in a gradual manner. And as we discussed, the practice can be done gradually by sacrificing slowly and slowly. See, in spiritual life, one of the basic tenements of spiritual life is the self-sacrifice of the individual for the benefit of the humanity. That is, to sacrifice yourself for the benefit of the humanity. So this sacrifice can be done little by little. You will find yourself gaining in confidence in life. If you do a small action which is unselfish in spirit, if you do a small action which can benefit others, you will find yourself the confidence building in yourself. So you will generate this confidence, you will generate this good karma, and you will find that you have the capacity to eliminate all the bad karma in life, and you will find yourself purified. So you will find yourself having all the spiritual attributes even by performing a single unselfish good karma. So start doing it little by little. Even by little, if you practice, it may bring in great results. So that is assurance given in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is assurance given by Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna and the Holy Mother also. So that is the process. That is, you lay hold of one link of the chain, you will get the whole, and water the roots of the tree. That is, go to God directly, and you will find everything will be set all right in life. And finally, Swami Vivekananda says, getting the Lord, we get all. So by getting the Lord, we get everything in life. We get the supreme bliss, we get the supreme happiness in life. And we find ourselves all the karmas getting destroyed, all the need for rebirths getting destroyed. We shine in eternity. So, that this is the result. That is, getting the Lord, we get everything. And regarding this particular sentence, we find Sri Ramakrishna explaining it in a beautiful way. He says that zeros in itself, it doesn't have meaning. For example, zero. Zero means zero only. Even if you add hundreds of zeros next to it, you will find the value still to be zero only. But suppose if you add 1 before it, or any other number other than 0 before it, you will find the value of the 0 to be meaningful. Similarly, in our lives, if we keep on adding everything else except God, still it will be zeros, still our life will be meaningless. But if you put God before everything else in life, we find our lives to be meaningful, our lives to be fruitful, and it has value. Putting God before life has the value. And we get everything as a result. So this is what Swami Vivekananda says. By getting the Lord, we get everything. So by placing God before our life, we get all the assurances, we get all the benefits in a simple process. So by adopting or by choosing the spiritual process, we are going to get everlasting joy in life. So by adopting this spiritual process, we are going to eliminate all the karma in life, wherein we are going to attain the supreme peace. So by adopting this spiritual process, we are going to uncover our goal. We are going to uncover the whole thing which is in spiritual life, and we are going to succeed in life. So this is the benefit which we get by adopting the spiritual life. This is the benefit which we get by adopting the prerequisites which are necessary for this process. So I hope you all understood what we discussed so far. So again I will repeat this passage that we discussed so far. So Swami Vivekananda says, be brave and be sincere. Then follow any path with devotion, and you must reach the whole. Once lay hold of one link of the chain, and the whole chain must come by degrees. Water the roots of the tree, and the whole tree gets watered. Getting the Lord, we get everything. That is, we get all. So again I repeat the things that we discussed in our class. So Swami Vivekananda says that we must be sincere and we must have courage. So courage is of two types. One is the physical courage, another is the spiritual courage. So spiritual courage is the conviction that we are the Atman and not this body. So based on that conviction, we have this spiritual courage. And then we discussed about Shraddha, that is having faith in your own self, having faith in your own spiritual abilities. and faith in the words of the Guru, faith in the existence of God, and faith in the spiritual path. And we also discussed placing God in the center of our lives. So by placing God in the center of our lives, we find all our thought processes and actions to be coherent. We find our lives to be meaningful. We will have a uniform morality and a moral yardstick to handle every situations in life. And finally, by placing God in the center of our life, we get all the benefits. We get everlasting joy and peace in life by eliminating all karma which may bring in future births and which may bring in and so on. So we eliminate everything which is undesirable in life, and we get everything that is good in life. So this is what Swami Vivekananda has given in this particular talk. So in the next class, we will discuss more about what Swami Vivekananda has said. Further, we will discuss more concepts related to it. So we'll end this class with a mantra here. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.